Last week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds had Uhura in the real prime timeline Captain Kirk gallivanting around the Enterprise while she was having schizophrenic delusions. This week, the producers of Star Trek decide to prank me by dropping the most anticipated episode of the season early to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the animated series. Come see why this episode is getting one of the highest ratings ever seen on the channel, but be warned that this review is riddled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen this glorious episode yet, be sure to go watch it, then come back and join in on the discussion later. With all that being said, thank you so much for being here. As usual, let's get right into the review. We first start off by saying that we were all definitely pranked. I was anticipating this episode to come out the regularly scheduled Thursday, but they decided to drop it in broad daylight while your boy was at work unprepared, but here I am, not to fret. Also, if you're wondering why it looks like I just sucked off an Andorian, it's because I just got done downing a Mountain Dew purple slushie. Episode 7 starts off with a little bit of education. I learn something new pretty much every time I go to rewatch or just see a new episode of Star Trek. We learn that the old NX ships were made of this material called honorium, which is also the same material that this time portal is made out of, that they utilize to have the cartoon characters come into the Strange New Worlds time setting and, real life universe. Now that I have already seen the Strange New Worlds intro, I usually skip it so that I could get to the content quicker and get my review over with, but today I'm happy that I stuck around to see that they took the time to create this beautiful animation reanimating the intro into a crossover between Strange New Worlds, taking pieces from their intro and also combining it perfectly with aspects from the Lower Decks intro, and it was just beautiful, and I stuck around to watch the entire thing, and it was well worth it. When I first heard about this crossover, it's long been teased to us as fans, I thought that it was going to be extremely difficult to meld these two shows together. I'm sure you guys were all as surprised as I was. Ever since Lower Decks came out, it's been extremely silly. Stuff that happens in that show is ludicrous, and it's hard to believe that sometimes these things can actually be happening in the Star Trek universe. Constantly had questions like, is Lower Decks actually canon? Is it in its own weird cartoon universe that's separate from the main prime timeline? And does Mariner actually get away with doing some of these things? All of these things and more are answered and to our satisfaction, which is just great to see. They're on Setlik 2, and this is a reference and variation to the planet Setlik 3. This is the Cardassian massacre planet that Chief O'Brien was on that traumatized him, as well as his commander at the time, Benjamin Maxwell. There was a whole episode in the TNG about this. So many rumors when we saw the original teaser for the crossover episode, whether Brad Boimler's hair was actually going to be purple, and it's great to see that when the episode came out, it was vividly purple. Perfectly the right amount of purple for live action. Even his eyebrows were purple, so it was accurate. His introduction in the medical bay, where he's introduced to every cast member of Strange New Worlds, is amazing. It is a work of art. His attempt to turn off the hollow deck, indicating that he's a 24th century Starfleet officer. His mannerisms are spot on to the cartoon Boimler. I was so impressed. I love Jack Quaid because of his performance as Huey on the Amazon The Boys series, and it's just so great to see him bring his talents to Star Trek and truly bringing this goofy cartoon character to life. I am truly impressed with both the talent of Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome, and I'm pretty sure everybody is going to agree with me on that. Their arm mannerisms, the way that they were getting into trouble, it was just spot on. Isn't it crazy that they chose Boimler to be the mechanic that starts the downfall of Spock and Nurse Chapel's relationship? That's insane. Brad Boimler makes such an impression on the characters of the Strange New Worlds cast. Loved seeing Boimler get wrapped up in the cables on the bridge while he was modifying the sensor technology psychology of the Enterprise. I thought it was very indicative of Boimler from the cartoon. It really brought him to life. Boimler flattering Captain Pike the whole episode, whether it be his hair, whether it just be aspects of his personality, or the fact that he dressed up as Captain Pike for Halloween. There are so many layers of appreciation that the Lower Decks cast, being from the future, have for the Enterprise cast, and there's so many scenes where Captain Pike and them have to just experience this from a past perspective. They're very funny, very charming. Loved seeing Captain Pike interact with the Cerritos crew members most of all. Also, the fact that they had to find a peaceful solution with the Orion pirates in order to protect Tendy's great-grandmother aboard the ship. That was so cool. The fact that there are layers to this. Rutherford and Tendy are involved even though they're not there, and we unfortunately didn't get to see them in a live-action format, which I really would have liked to see Tendy, because I feel like she would have been hot. Rutherford, I don't really care about. Rutherford's always been my least favorite member of the cast. I could care less if I see him brought to live action. This is one of the first times we also see Mariner mess up Boimler style when she uses the last charge on the portal. This is the point in the episode where I just felt it was extremely content-filled. By the time they return to the portal and they act like they're wrapping it up, it's only about the 22 to the 23 minute point, and I still have well over another 20 minutes of Star Trek content left, and that's how I know that this episode is really good. It hasn't been that much time, but a lot has happened, and as a viewer, very engaged. Live action Mariner has a little nose stud, and I just assume that Tawny Newsome has this in regularly, and she didn't want to take it out to play the character, and it would be very cool for them to add a little bit of realism, maybe giving Mariner in season 5, one episode giving her a little bit of a nose stud to reference Tawny in this episode. That would be a really great detail. Also, I feel like it's really not that important for the Enterprise crew to get the impression that they will someday become famous or big figures in the future in the world of starship exploration, since they're pretty much already the cream of the crop in their current field. They're on the flagship, the most popular, most advanced ship in the entire fleet. There's only 12 of them, and they're all senior staff, so they pretty much already know that they're slightly significant. I don't think it really matters that much for them to learn that they're going to be something great. I mean, it happened to Captain Archer, and he survived perfectly fine. Una thought she was in a Lieutenant Yar situation when she got that vibe from Boimler, that he was just getting nervous and rigid every time he was around her, and it was so cool to see that the real reason for that is just that Boimler's an incredibly big fan of Una, and that she is the face of Starfleet recruitment, kind of like how in World War II they had those iconic posters saying we can do it, because at the time, while men were off at war, a large portion of working class women were back home working in factories. So it's kind of cool to see Una be hey, the we can do it of Starfleet, and she's the poster child, and it references the episode Ad Astra per whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's just so sensational. Uhura, however, is affected by this. Probably the most relatable thing that I have ever heard in a Star Trek episode ever. This is a huge deal for me. This is a big claim, because I relate to a lot of things about Star Trek, but this was just felt like it was talking straight to my soul. Stressful to her knowing that she's only 22 and she's really not too confident and sold on what her path currently is, to have somebody come from the future and basically say that she's going to become a famous explorer and is going to be known for so many amazing redeeming qualities, and she's only 22, and that's how old I am right now. More so than ever right now, I'm faced with what I need to do with the rest of my life, who I am going to be as a person, and that all scares the ever-living crap out of me. I feel like a lot of my loved ones have good expectations of me that I have to live up to. Sometimes I feel like I'm inept, I'm not good enough. Whenever I get exhausted or tired, I feel like I'm not using my energy or my time wisely enough, or I'm making bad decisions, I get down on myself really easily and I get stressed. But seeing Uhura go through this herself and talk to Mariner about it reminds me to just calm down, believe in myself, and just trust the process. I've always got to strive to improve every day at the very minimum, even if it's just a little bit. Everybody on this planet is a constant work in progress, and there's no such thing as a perfect human being. So it's just a great, amazing scene, in my opinion, that I believe young viewers will see for decades to come, and it's really going to inspire them, and not only that, get them to fall in love and appreciate Star Trek. So, brilliant scene. That was S tier, and I've never related to anything in Star Trek more than that before. While trying to decipher the hieroglyphics in the text in the languages that are on this portal, Uhura is actually looking at the pad, and you get to see that there is Cardassian and Bajoran languages like back to back, and this is obviously foreshadowing the future occupation of Bajor. Also, when Boimler was talking to Spock, my head almost exploded. I think that he might be the sole reason they're writing for the fact that Spock is going to be conservative in the future in the TOS. Boimler actually went to Spock and said that the universe relied on him being Vulcan while Spock was experimenting with feelings and, you know, using his human side and just being creepy and smiling the whole entire episode. Here comes somebody from the future saying that, hey, the whole entire universe, health of the timeline, relies on you not exploring this. This might be the explanation for conservative Spock. I've long theorized that it was going to be Veggie Pike. My impression now is that Spock was definitely influenced by Boimler. Boimler was the start, but then you could see Spock slowly convince himself, like, hey, if you never would have shown up, I would have done this, explored it, and see how it went. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and not let you affect me, Boimler. Also, do you feel lucky? That was hilarious when Spock asked Boimler if he was lucky. It's just a good scene. So in conclusion, I still feel like Veggie Pike will be the true nail in the coffin for why Spock becomes really conservative and just a real non-feeling Vulcan later. Like typical Lower Decks fashion, Mariner and Boimler spend the entire episode when they're together spamming references, and I'm not going to pluck each one of them out and explain them to you, because a lot of them are pretty basic, and then not only that, I'll just have plenty of time to do that when Lower Decks Season 4 comes out. And it was really cool because I saw the Lower Decks Season 4 trailer. They reference this whole crossover episode, and Mariner says, oh, we aren't supposed to talk about the Pike thing. I will mention, however, how happy I was for Mariner to reference Trelane from the Squire of Gothos episode in the TOS. I really like that episode. It's really funny. And she also did that to contrast how they haven't met Q yet. One of the craziest lines in this episode was given by Boimler. This guy impressed me so much when he went to Pike and he said, one day, if you're not here anymore, how many people on this ship would wish that you were here for an extra day and that you actually did spend your birthday with them? That was so good. Pike talking about how he would give anything to have an extra day with his dad and to argue with him even though they never got along and they never really resolved things. And then here's Boimler actually hitting him with straight facts, like, why are you so reluctant to spend time with your crew? There's going to be a time in the future when they'd give anything to spend an extra day with you. That made me almost want to cry. That was so well written. That is like one of the best written lines and scenes Star Trek of the past 15 years. That really impressed me, just that little line right there. It was really cool to see the NX-01 given so much love, prize in general, having all the cast members, the crew members, just being name dropped by people in the future, and they're appreciating them here in the TOS era, almost kind of like how Boimler and Mariner are appreciating the TOS era from their perspective coming from the 24th century. That was very cool. Them having the whole cast animated at the end was the cherry on top of the icing on top of the best cake ever. When I first heard that they were going to be doing this crossover, in my mind, I was like, the perfect fan service is if they actually took the time to give us all animated versions of the Strange New Worlds cast. And they did! They all looked amazing! There were so many funny one-liners. This episode was genuinely so funny. And Benga, Pike, Una, they all had really great cartoon versions, and I really do not doubt Star Trek fans would actually pay a lot of money to have a full episode of Strange New Worlds be turned into an animated format. That would be great, because they just looked so good at the end. When that scene happened, in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna give this episode a 10 out of 10. When the animated characters drank the Orion Pirate Alien started to get high, I just knew that this was a 10 out of 10. And I think the only other episode that might be a 10 out of 10 is the season finale for Star Trek Picard Season 3. Other than that, I really don't think I've ever given a 10 out of 10. I've been waiting to get a Star Trek episode so well executed, so impressive, so funny, and just bringing me so much joy every minute, every second, and that's what a 10 is. That is this episode. This is one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever made. Only criticism I have, and it's not worth knocking it down to a 9.5, is that we didn't get to see live-action Tendi. But you know, when I saw the Strange New Worlds crew, 10 out of 10 immediately. Also, it's just really important that they finally answered the question that, hey, there is no difference between the Lower Decks universe and the Strange New Worlds universe. All Star Trek is canon. Even when it doesn't seem like it, even when there's mistakes, you just have to trust that all Trek flows in perfect unity, and that even when you hop through a portal and things seem more realistic, we're still in the same universe. Everything that happens in Lower Deck, funnily enough, canon, and just all Star Trek is canon. I love Star Trek. Last thing I say before I'll go is that I am extremely excited that they have announced that episode 8 or 9 is going to be a musical. Like, they're going One Piece Film Red on it, and I cannot wait for that. I really love to sing, even though I'm not great or even good at singing. I love singing. Saw The Lion King on Broadway once, and that was insane, and ever since then, I've really liked the art of just, like, theater and musicals. Beyond stoked to see that, and whether this season will just continue to get stronger from here on out. This is one of the best seasons of Star Trek ever made. That is for sure. And also, wait, I do want to say that it was really cool that they called Ortegas a war hero. I think that is referencing the upcoming Gorn war that they're about to have, and she's going to have a huge role in that, apparently, being the helmsman of the Enterprise. Potentially first 10 out of 10 review on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you've stuck around this long, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe to the channel. When we hit 10,000 subscribers, I am going to dress up as a Star Trek Xenos and film a silly video out in public. If you have anything you'd like to share with me, please leave it down in the comments below. I love comments more than anything. The more you leave, the happier I am. Please slap a like on the video if you enjoyed it. And with all that being said, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Until next time, live long and prosper.